So I like numbers. I like numbers for a couple of different reasons, but one of the reasons I like numbers is how they help you tell a story. Stories are often things that involve emotion and drama and tension and resolution, the things that make up a story. But numbers are helpful because they give us concrete realities that can segment our way through a story and how we tell what's going on. And one of the stories that I see unfolding in our society today is around conflict. One of the numbers that I continue to think about actually involves polling that's been done amongst both Republicans and Democrats, and this has been happening for at least the last 8 or so years. And what they have found, and it's happened longer, but over the last 8 years, that there's been a trend roughly that about 90+% of Republicans and Democrats say that the other party not only is wrong on policy, but that they are actively trying to harm and destroy our country. From both sides would look at the other side and say, you're not just wrong, you're actively trying to hurt me and destroy me and tear down our way of life, right? And the reality is that is not true. We know it's not true. There might be some people, some fringe people from the other side that we could say yeah, that thing, but 90% of them, no, it's not. There is a temptation and a longing within our world that wants to take two groups and inherently put them in opposition and put them in tension and let them argue and fight and build up an enemy relationship with one another. And yet the call of the gospel is to move exactly against what that is and what it looks like. We often, our culture wants us to rally around the tribe and we're good and righteous and they're bad and evil, regardless of what that means for Jesus and just about policy or politics. And the reality is that the call of the gospel calls both of us, or all of us, because there's more than two parties, out of our existence and out of an enemy relationship and one into friends and neighbors and adopted children, right? And we see that played out in a bunch of different places in the scriptures. I think you see it really clearly in the book of Ephesians. In Ephesians chapter 6, and it says in verse 12, "For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms." Look, we have enemies. We do. Our enemies are just never any other person in the room. We are all just people who are looking and longing to be reconciled to God and one another. And we have policy disagreements and we have things in leadership. Those are all fine. But we cannot say with any degree of credibility that someone with whom we have a disagreement is or should be our enemy. They are people waiting to be reconciled by the love and grace of God. And so what that means for our practice and challenge this week is really twofold. One, the base level that everyone can do. There are people in your life that you probably think of as an enemy. There are people in my life that I know I am tempted to think of as an enemy. The call for us is to pray for those people. Pray for their flourishing and thriving, for them as people, even while you disagree for some of the things they stand for. The stretch one, the extra credit one, is to sit down with someone with whom you either have a disagreement or someone you think of as an enemy or a frenemy or some iteration thereof, and just talk and listen and hear who they are and realize that the 90% belief of that they're actively trying to destroy and harm our country is not true. Right? To be reminded that our struggle is not against flesh and blood, is not against other people. It is against the powers of evil that exist in our world. And while there is an enemy, it is never anybody in the room. Grace and peace, friends, as you go out this week to love and serve the Lord.